I have to say that I was always in love. He never was, or if he was, he never expressed it to me. In all that time, he never said the words, "I love you."
Musically, there was a great synergy, but romantically, it sounded like a nightmare.
Kind of was, because I just was this person constantly looking for something he couldn't give. And that part was wrong, but the music, we were right there together. Finally got us to marry was when our accountant said, you know, you could pay a lot less taxes if you were married. I mean, not me, I wanted to, but that was what Daryl said, okay.
For decades, she was one half of America's most beloved musical duo, smiling through the spotlight and love songs that defined a generation. But now at 85, Toni Tennille is finally breaking her silence about the marriages that shaped her life, and nearly broke her heart. To the world, she was radiant, a picture of joy, her warm contralto voice floating over the airwaves with songs that made people believe in love. Love Will Keep Us Together became more than a hit. It was a promise, a dream, an anthem for a simpler time. But behind that radiant smile was a woman quietly carrying the weight of a love that was far more complicated than anyone ever knew. Toni's story begins in the dusty heart of Montgomery, Alabama, long before the cameras, the gold records, or the crowds. She was a dreamer, the daughter of a woman who once danced on stage and a father whose charisma couldn't mask his struggles. Music was her escape, her secret language. Even as a young girl, she felt the world through melody, joy, heartbreak, hope. All of it lived inside the notes she sang. In college, she found her way to the theater, where she wrote a musical called Mother Earth, a tribute to passion and creativity. It was there that destiny, quietly and unexpectedly, began to align the pieces of her future. When she met Daryl Dragon, a shy, classically trained musician who had played keyboards for the Beach Boys, something clicked. They were opposites. She, effusive and full of Southern warmth. He, reserved, introverted, almost mysterious. Yet together they created magic. He became the captain, the man behind the music, always wearing his signature nautical cap. She was the smiling face, the voice, the heart that connected with millions. They seemed perfect, the kind of love story people wanted to believe in. On stage, they were inseparable. Off stage, things were much quieter, much lonelier. The world only saw the glittering side of their partnership, the sold-out concerts, the television specials, the Grammys. In the mid-1970s, Captain and Tennille weren't just famous. They were symbols of affection, of unity. Their music wrapped around people's hearts like a warm embrace. But what the audience didn't see was the growing silence between them. Daryl was distant, emotionally closed off, a man more comfortable behind an instrument than within intimacy. Toni, on the other hand, longed for connection, for laughter, for shared warmth that extended beyond the songs they performed. Behind every curtain call and every love song, there were long nights of quiet heartbreak. Toni often said later that she would reach out, a hand on his arm, a gentle word, and find nothing waiting on the other side. There were no fights, no cruelty, just a wall she could never break through. Still, she stayed. She told herself that maybe love wasn't about fireworks or romance. Maybe it was about commitment, about standing beside the person you promised to love even when it hurt. For years, she hid her loneliness beneath her music, singing songs about devotion that she desperately wanted to feel in her own life. The success only made the silence louder. Fame has a way of amplifying the distance between two people. And while the cameras captured the smiles, they never caught the tears Toni shed alone. When their variety show aired on television in the late 70s, the audience adored them. To the fans, they were the picture of harmony, America's sweethearts. But when the lights dimmed and the applause faded, she went home to a man who, though kind, lived locked away inside himself. Daryl loved her in his own way, but it was a love without touch, without expression, a quiet ache that slowly eroded the woman she once was. Years passed, and the golden shine of their fame began to fade. Trends changed, the music industry evolved, and the couple who once symbolized eternal love drifted into the shadows of nostalgia. They still performed together even as their personal bond grew more fragile. Toni began to realize that she had been living for the image. The perfect duo, the smiling couple, the symbol everyone wanted them to be. But the truth, the quiet truth she rarely spoke aloud, was that she was lonely, deeply lonely. When she finally spoke about it decades later, her voice trembled not with anger, but with sadness. "He just couldn't be affectionate," she once admitted. "He was incapable of it." There was no bitterness, no resentment, only the sorrow of a woman who had loved deeply, but had spent most of her life waiting for something that never came. She cared for Daryl until the end, even when their marriage no longer resembled a partnership. In 2014, after nearly 40 years of marriage, she made the painful decision to divorce him. And yet, even in that separation, her compassion endured. When Daryl's health began to fail, she moved to Arizona to be near him, to make sure he wasn't alone. When he passed away in 2019, Toni was there, holding the memory of the man she had loved, not for what he gave her, but for who he was. Looking back, she describes her marriages, to Daryl and the brief ones before him, as lessons in understanding, in the complexity of human emotion. Her first marriage, in her youth, was impulsive, a young woman searching for belonging, for the storybook kind of love she had seen in songs and movies. But life rarely imitates the melody. By the time she met Daryl, she thought she had found her forever. In a way, she had, but it wasn't the fairy tale the world imagined. It was quieter, more complicated, filled with loyalty but lacking warmth. And yet she stayed, perhaps out of love, perhaps out of hope, perhaps because walking away from someone who has shared your dreams feels like erasing part of yourself. Now, at 85, Toni speaks about her past with the kind of honesty that only time allows. She doesn't hide behind the gloss of nostalgia or the veil of performance. She talks about love not as a song lyric, but as something fragile, flawed, and human. "I wanted him to love me," she says softly, "but he just couldn't." There's no bitterness in her voice, only acceptance, a gentle peace that comes from finally telling the truth. For decades, she sang that love would keep us together. But now she admits that love by itself isn't always enough. Sometimes love is endurance. Sometimes it's silence. And sometimes it's knowing when to let go. Her story is not a tragedy. It's a portrait of resilience. She continues to sing, even now, not on grand stages, but in quiet moments, her voice still rich with the same tenderness that once moved millions. She fills her days with art, with friends, with the simple joy of being alive. And when she reflects on her journey, she doesn't dwell on what she lost, but on what she learned. That love, even when unreturned, shapes us. That heartbreak, when faced with grace, can become a kind of freedom. And that sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is to finally tell her own story. Unedited, unpolished, and true. As she sits in her Arizona home, sunlight spilling across her piano, there's a quiet sense of completion. The woman who once sang of eternal love now understands that love takes many forms, some that stay, some that fade, and some that live on only in memory. Her laughter still fills the room, soft and genuine, carrying both joy and sorrow in equal measure. She remembers the tours, the television lights, the endless rehearsals, but what lingers most are the small, tender moments. The way Daryl would focus so completely on his keyboard, the hush that fell over the audience when they harmonized perfectly, the fleeting connection that music always gave them, even when words failed. In the end, Toni Tennille's story isn't about fame or even heartbreak. It's about the courage to look back and speak the truth no matter how much time has passed. It's about a woman who spent her life singing of love, only to realize that love's truest form isn't always found in romance, but in understanding, in compassion, in endurance, in the quiet decision to forgive. At 85, she is no longer the woman smiling through another performance. She is the storyteller, the survivor, the voice that still carries warmth even after decades of silence. And as her music continues to echo through time, there's a certain beauty in knowing that every note, every lyric came from a woman who lived its meaning. Love will keep us together may have been written for the world, but its echoes belong to her, to the girl from Alabama who dreamed big, to the wife who waited patiently for affection, to the woman who finally found peace in her own voice. And maybe, just maybe, that's the greatest love story of all. One not about being loved, but about learning to love yourself enough to finally speak your truth. In these twilight years, Toni no longer chases applause or seeks validation from the stage lights that once defined her. Instead, she finds comfort in the quiet, in mornings filled with soft sunlight, in the gentle hum of music drifting from her piano, in the company of memories that no longer sting but soothe. There's grace in her solitude now, a sense that she's come full circle. She doesn't regret the years she spent loving a man who couldn't love her back the way she needed. She sees those years as chapters of a life fully lived, sometimes painful, sometimes lonely, but always sincere. The songs she once sang for millions now belong only to her. Reflections of a journey that taught her what love really means: patience, forgiveness, and the courage to let go. When Toni speaks today, her voice carries the warmth of someone who has finally made peace with her past. She doesn't flinch at the memories, doesn't hide from the truth. Instead, she embraces it. Every mistake, every heartbreak, every melody that shaped her. The world remembers her as the smiling woman who told them love would last forever. But she knows now that love's real beauty lies not in its permanence, but in its ability to change us. Love kept her together when the music stopped, when the crowd went home, when the silence grew heavy. And in that silence, she found herself. At 85, Toni Tennille stands as a quiet reminder that even after the songs fade, the truth remains. Her voice, her story, and her heart, all still here, still singing, still shining softly in the gentle light of time.